Lesson 2.2, two variable equations, otherwise known as word problems. So if we're talking about two variable equations in this sense, we're not talking about two separate letters as variables, but rather two different situations using the same letter. So let's look at an example. Molly is thinking of a number between 1 and 10. She multiplies the number by 5 and adds 8, and her final answer is 7 times her original number. So we're using the same number, which means we're using the same variable in two different ways. Okay, so let's break this down. She's thinking of a number between 1 and 10, so we know it's going to be 1 through 10. She multiplies the number by 5 and adds 8. So if we let x equal the number, okay, let's look at multiplies the number by 5 and adds 8. I multiply by 5, I add 8. Her final answer, so that's going to equal something, is 7 times her original number. 7 times her original number. Now if I solve this, I subtract 5x from both sides, and I have that 8 is equal to 2x. I divide by 2, and my original number is 4. Now, I want to check it. 5 times 4 plus 8, that's 28. And 7 times 4 is 28. 28 equals 28. I got the right answer. So let's look at the steps for solving word problems. Here's our word problem. And our first step is to carefully read the problem all the way once. So, for example, the sum of two numbers is 84, and one of them is 12 more than the other. What are the two numbers? Identify all of the information and write it down as knowns and unknowns. Knowns. Sum of two numbers. So I put number 1 plus number 2 is 84, and number 1 is 12 more than number 2. Unknown. Number 1 and number 2. Okay, so that's what we know and what we don't know. Assign a variable to the unknowns. Well, I know that number 1 is 12 plus number 2. So if I let number 2 be x, if number 2 is equal to x, number 1 is equal to 12 plus x. So this was step 2. This is step 3. Now I can either draw a picture, make a table, or write a sentence to help me create the equation. I kind of already did that right here. I have that number 1 plus number 2 is 84, and number 1 is equal to 12 plus number 2, which gave me this. Now I'm going to write my equation. Number 1 is 12 plus x. Number 2 is x, and together they equal 84. Now I need to solve this. I have two x's, so that's 12 plus 2x is equal to 84. Subtract 12 from both sides. 2x is equal to 72. Divide by 2, and x is equal to 36. Now I need to check my answer. Okay, sometimes we look just first of all to see if it makes sense. If we were talking about the speed of an airplane in the sky, we would not expect to get an answer like 5 miles an hour. If you were talking about a person running, you would not expect to get 200 miles an hour. So sometimes it's really obvious if the answer is wrong. Other times we just have to check. So Number 1 is 12 plus number 2. This is number 2. So number 2 is 36. And number 1 will be 36 plus 12, giving me 48. So now I check those. Do 36 and 48 add up to 84? 8 plus 6 is 14, carry my 1. 5 and 3 is 84. It worked. So my two numbers are 36 and 48. Okay, let's try another one. Julie has $50, which is $8 more than twice what John has. How much? This was from a British site, so how much money does John have? So what I would like you to do is I want you to try to set this up and then pause the video, try it, unpause the video, and we'll go through it and see how you did. Okay, so let's look at this. What we know is that Julie has $50 and that Julie's $50 is twice what John has plus 8. What we don't know is how much money John has. So if we let John be X, our unknown, then we know that Julie is twice X plus 8, and we also know that Julie is 50. That means we can set these equal to each other. 2x plus 8 equals 50. To solve, I subtract 8 from both sides, giving me 2x is equal to 42. Then I divide both sides by 2, and I get that x is 21. So John has $21. We can double check that and plug the 21 in and make sure that's 50. And we know that we solved it correctly. So let's look at some other examples. Consecutive numbers. We have the sum of two consecutive numbers is 37. What are the numbers? Well, first of all, we need to understand what consecutive numbers are. Consecutive numbers are numbers that follow one after another. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. If you start with 23, you have 23, 24, 25, etc. Then we have something called consecutive even numbers, and these are even numbers that follow one after another, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, etc. And you can have consecutive odd numbers. Odd numbers that follow after one another are 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, etc. Now, algebraically, we want to look at how to set this up. To go from a 1 to a 2 to a 3, 3 to a 4, etc., I add 1 each time. So if I started with 25, my next number would be 26. I add 1 each time. So when I don't know the consecutive numbers, my first is x. My second will be x plus 1. Well, here's x. X plus 1 is 2. To get to a 3, I add another 1. X plus 2. My fourth number would be x plus 3. My fifth would be x plus 4, etc. Now my consecutive even numbers, to go from a 2 to a 4 to a 6, a 6 to an 8, I'm adding 2 each time. So if my first number is x, my second number is not going to be x plus 1, it's going to be x plus 2. To get to my third number, I add 2 again. So I have x plus 4. My fourth number would be x plus 6. My fifth number would be x plus 8, and etc. I'm adding 2 every time. When I talk about odd numbers, I add 2 then as well. To go from 1 to 3, I add 2. To go from 3 to 5, I add 2. I add 2, etc. So consecutive even numbers and consecutive odd numbers will follow the same pattern. We add 2 each time. Consecutive numbers adds 1 each time. So let's look at our problem. The sum of two consecutive numbers is 37. What are they? Okay, well, I want two consecutive numbers. 2 of them. So I have x and x plus 1. These are my two numbers. I want the sum of them, so I'm going to add them together, and that is 37. So I have 2x plus 1 is equal to 37. Let me rewrite that over here. I take away 1 from both sides, and I get 2x is equal to 36. I divide by 2, and x is 18. So my consecutive numbers are 18 and 19, and I want to just check that. I'm going to add them together, and it does work out to be 37. So let's try another one. The sum of two consecutive odd numbers is 52. Now I've got consecutive odd numbers. The first one is going to be x. The second one is going to be x plus 2 because, as you recall, we add 2 each time. So x plus 2, that's the sum of the two numbers, is equal to 52. 2x plus 2 is equal to 52. Subtract 2 from both sides, and I get that 2x is equal to, 50. Then I divide by 2, and I get x is equal to 25. Now it's not going to be 25 and 26, it's going to be 25 and 27 because I need odd numbers. So then I check, add those together, I do get 52, so I know I did it correctly. Let's look at some more examples. Divide $80 among 3 people so that the second will have twice as much as the first, and the third will have 5 less than the second. Okay, so I have 3 people, and I have $80. Okay, we want the second to have twice as much as the first. So the first we'll call x. The second will have twice as much as the first. And then the third, we want to have 5 less than the second. So 5 less than, so we subtract 5. Okay, so again, we'll call the first person x. The second will have twice as much, so that's 2x. The third has 5 less than the second, so we take the 2x and we take 5 away. Altogether, it's going to be $80, so we need to add these all up. X plus 2x plus 2x, that's 3x plus 2x is 5x. Add 5 to both sides, and I get that 5x is equal to 75. Divide by 5, and x is equal to 15. Okay, so we have that the first person has $15. The second person has twice that, so they should have 30, and the third person should have twice that, minus 5, so 30 minus 5, which is 25. Now we need to check. We want to take 15, 30, and 25 and make sure it adds up to 80. 5, 6, 7. And it does not. Hold on one second. Okay, so I did make a mistake, and this is a good thing that we check our work, because see, if I add this up together, I get 70. Here's my mistake. When I added 5, I actually subtracted for some reason. Instead of saying 85, I wrote 75. That makes this 15. 5 goes into 85, not 15 times, but 17 times. Right, because 5 goes into 8 once with 3 left over, 35, so that should be 17. So this should be 17, which makes this not 30, but 34, which makes that not 25, but 29. So when I check them, 9 and 4 is 13, plus 7 is 20. 4, 7, 8, 80. So my first person has 17. My second has 34. And my third has 29. So as you can see, checking your answers to make sure it works out is a really good thing because that helps you find those small mistakes that everybody makes. So let's try some more. Oops. Okay, let's try 3 consecutive numbers. 3 consecutive numbers, I have x plus 1, and x plus 2. The sum of 3 consecutive numbers is 87. So I'll add those together to equal 87. 1, 2, 3 x's. Right, 1, 2, 3. And then I have a 1 and a 2, so that adds up to 3. Subtract 3 from both sides, and I get 3x is equal to 84. Divide by 3, and x is equal to, well, 3 goes into 8 twice. 2 left over, so 28. So my numbers will be 28, 29, and 30. And I want to add those together and double check and make sure they add up to 87. 8 and 9 is 17. 6, 7, or 5, 6, 7, 8, 87. We did add up. Let's try this one. Okay. So what I would like you to do is go ahead and pause the video. Just try to see if you can set this up and solve it. And then when you're finished, unpause and go over the work and see how you did. Okay, so what we know is that we have men, women, and children, and there are 266 of them. We know that there are 4 times as many as men as children, and 2 times as many women as children. We don't know how many children there are, so we're going to let that be x. So children is x, women is 2x, and men is 4x, and all together when we add them we get 266. 4x plus 2x plus x is 7x. Divide both sides by 7 and you get 38 kids. 4 times 38 is 152 men, and 2 times 38 is 76 women. Now we check it, we add them together, 38 plus 152 plus 76, and we do get 266.